everyone, I wanted to walk you through the peer review form. My hope is that this will help you both in grading your peer's paper, but also in writing your own. So first, I just wanted to talk a little about the structure of the peer review. Please notice that it's several pages long and you do need to do all of them. So first up, you need to identify 3 to 4 specific strengths of the paper, things about good things that they've done in their development, if their research is good, if they have compelling examples, if it's well organized. Those are all examples of strengths. And then 3 to 4 ways the paper could be improved. And again, specific. If you don't think their grammar is very good, what is it about their grammar that isn't very good? If you think their research needs help, is it that their sources are not scholarly? Is it that they are not presenting them in the text of the paper? Just be clear about that so that they can fix those strengths before their final, or those weaknesses before their final draft. The next portion is a rubric. This is the exact same rubric I'll be using to grade your papers. So it's really helpful when you can give your peer an idea for where this fits because they'll see this again in 2 weeks. So after the rubric, so you can bold it, color it, however you want to represent that. After that, there's a place for additional comments. So if you think that their thesis is strong, and you know exactly where it's going and it's well organized, put that right here. So let's just walk through these sections. Your first section is thesis. So a few things that I want to look for. I've already given each of you a lot of commentary on your specific thesis statements and on your topics. So the 2 parts about it being clearly stated or difficult to understand and connecting to sociology, you should have a lot of feedback about in your proposals. So I really recommend checking that proposal feedback. If I gave you any comments on your thesis statement, now is a good time to check for those. But the other thing that I feel like sometimes people miss is this standard that you're introducing it with around 1 page of development. So this is also your grade for an introduction section. So there's a few things you might want to put in an introduction to make about that page. One could be sort of compelling statistics about your topic. So say that you're writing statistics about, or say your paper is about the lack of fathers on delinquency. This is a great place to put your statistic about how many children are being raised without fathers in the United States. It's also, there's many ways to do a good introduction. There's not one single formula. You might have compelling examples. Maybe you read some research that had that sort of qualitative research and you want to put one of those in. That's great. Maybe you want to give relevant historical information. What is some development on your topic? Please make sure if you do history that it's very focused to your specific event. It doesn't need to be a history of everything that's ever happened. Just like a few points that lead you up to there. It could be reasons why this is important for us to study. What has happened in society that's made your topic really compelling. If you are like, man, I cannot get to a page, please contact me and we can brainstorm through some ways that you can do that. A lot of people do lose points on that page of development. And I'm not like looking exactly for a page or you're getting a bad grade, but close to a page is what you should aim for. All right, next section is application and development. So let's look at the A level. This is what it asks for. So first is that your thesis statement is supported by 3 to 4 focused points. What I'm looking for in these points is that they A, connect to your thesis. I can see how they fit in that direct position statement that you're making and how they make me think more deeply about that, how they bring up compelling, important evidence about that. So when you have those points, you then need about 3 to 5 paragraphs per point. So say your point is that because children lack fathers, they lack a male role model is one of them. You would have like 2 or 3 others. Then you would have 3 to 5 paragraphs talking about that. In your development on each point, I am first looking for some research about those since it is a research paper. So whether that's direct quotes from the articles that you've read or whether that's summarizing their points but then saying which source it came from, both of those are appropriate. But then I also need to see what you have to say about those. How do these different articles that you've just read fit together? How do they fit with your thesis statement? Why is it important? Why does it matter? There's a lot of your own development about that research, and I'm looking throughout to see that you continue tying it back to the position in your thesis statement. Problems I sometimes see here are either a lack of research, any sort of reference to it, so I don't know what's your research and what's your opinion. I sometimes also see students only put in research with none of their own comments on it. So you do need to make sure that it's a balance of both, and of course that it's the accurate length. All right, the next section is your documentation. So minimum of 10 outside sources. Most of you have already found all of those with the annotated bibliography. I need ASA format for your sources within text. So, check that out, see what it means with the parentheses, the author, the year. Make sure you're just checking quickly to see what that looks like. I also need to see that in your works cited page at the end of the paper. And please do make sure that no more than 3 of your sources are websites. Now, if you have more than 10 sources, it's not a problem. It's a minimum of 10 sources. The problems that I do see on this regularly are either not enough sources, not enough scholarly sources, where it is a lot of websites, or a big one does tend to be in-text citation, where I don't see any resources cited within. All right, next up, this is a big one that I feel like gets misunderstood on the papers, is your sociological comprehension. Please read this carefully. So first up, it's a section. I'm not just grading on sociological comprehension throughout the body of your paper. It's a specific section. You need to include at least 2 theories from your textbook. I'll add that if you want to apply like a broader sociological theory, like if you really want to do a conflict theory approach or a symbolic interaction approach or a functionalist approach, I'm also okay with that. But they do need to be sociological theories, or if you've done research and you found one that has a really great theory but you're not sure if it applies, talk to me about it, because sometimes your author on a research piece will use a theory. Sometimes it's specific to that paper, and sometimes it's just one that we didn't cover in the class. So ask me about it. I'm often pretty good with those too. So once you have looked at those theories, I want to see that it's accurate, that it shows that you understand the theory, that there's detail, that you say something like, oh, okay, here is how social disorganization theory fits. And then you say the specific, 2 or 3 elements of social disorganization theory that you're seeing in this topic that you've studied. And this is, again, approximately a page. And really, I think the most common part that students don't do is just not including this section. Don't lose, this is 15 points, so it's 10% of your grade. Don't lose 10% of your grade off the bat. Make sure that you have this section. And if you're having trouble applying the theory, let me know, and I'm happy to help. All right, 3 last ones, and these are pretty brief. So your reflection is basically the conclusion of your paper, but it's a very specific type of conclusion in a sociology paper. It is not just a summary of the last things you've talked about. There are a few things that it involves. First, it's talking about why did I just spend, 6 to 8 pages of writing focusing on this topic? Why does this matter? That can talk about why this matters for society. So, what does this issue that you've looked at, what does this say about society? What does this say about the future of society if it goes on without treatment? Another thing that you are including, and really this works pretty well with all of our topics, is relevant policy suggestions. So this could be a government policy, but it could also be a school policy or a community policy. Don't just say, well, I think people need to stop labeling people. Tell me how that's going to happen. What are we going to do to make it so people can do that? And again, this is about a page. And really, I think where I tend to see the most issues is just that people don't include part of it, or that they only summarize their points and that it's very short. So again, reading the rubric on both sociological comprehension and reflection is a very helpful thing for your grade for the paper. Organization, I want to see it connect back to your thesis statement. I love being able to know exactly which of your points you're talking about. Use paragraphing, use the indents. And if I can just follow it logically, that's really what I'm looking for. I get questions sometimes about titles for sections. Those are great, but they're not required. So if you like using titles, awesome, go ahead and use them. If you don't, it's fine, as long as I can still tell what you're talking about. Also, just an organization point. If you say my paper is about A, B, and C, it really helps if your paper then goes in the order of A, B, and C, not B, A, some more of B, C, A. Have it follow the thing that you wrote about earlier in your paper. And then last, it's not an English class, so this language and grammar isn't a huge portion of the paper, but I am just looking for first formality. The big one where I'd say people lose points here is using too much first person language. Scholarly papers shouldn't really use I almost at all, shouldn't really use we almost at all. It's in the third person. And then as far as spelling and grammar, if there's just a few very occasional little typos, you're not losing points for that. But if I start to notice multiple spelling or grammar errors, that's when you start losing the points for that. All right, I hope this helps. Please contact me if you have any questions or you're having trouble getting your paper to fit one of these, and I'm always happy to help. Thanks.